empower and mobilise environmental commissions, green teams and other local officials on municipal environmental protection. She also developed Anjet's course of highly effective environmental commissions, edited the Environmental Commissioner's Handbook and speaks at workshops on environmental commission powers and responsibilities. She holds an MA in degree from Columbia University in Organisational Development and a BS degree from the School of Business at Rutgers University.
So over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, we have our panelists, so they're going to give a small presentation, and then we're going to open it up and have a discussion. And I'd like to introduce the panelists. First up is going to be Rosana de Silva, and Rosana is the Water Quality Manager at the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary Program, and where she runs the Interagency Water Quality Work Group and works with partner agencies to further water quality and monitoring efforts in New York and New Jersey. She dedicates her work to improve water quality in the region through community engagement, data collection, and addressing water quality complexities with an educational lens. And prior to joining the program, she worked with the Rutgers Cooperative Water Resources Program Extension. That's where I met her, where she advanced stormwater best management practices through outreach and implementation of green infrastructure practices with public agencies, utilities, universities, nonprofits, and local community groups. Rosana has an EM in science education and a BS in environmental science from Rutgers. Matt's with our Mid-Atlantic Policy Manager for the Surfrider Foundation. He works in coastal management for more than 12 years with organizations such as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and New York's Department of Environmental Conservation. And he holds a master's in coastal environmental management from Duke University, where my husband went. Yay! Yeah, I know, I had no idea. And then we have Kane, who's the Director of Digital Strategy for the award-winning Longleat Whale Program and manager of the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp. And this social media powerhouse spearheaded the Stop Sucking campaign. We're hoping we can do something similar to balloons for that. And the global award-winning Viral Social Media Challenge, which has since earned transcription in over 25 languages, including the 6 official United Nations languages, and has reached nearly 315 million viewers across 40 countries, which is awesome, and inspired to leverage the best-in-class digital and communication strategies for good. So Emmy's been recognized by Passion Passport as a top social media thought leader and a practitioner, and has presented at the 3rd UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi, and the PBB-LIC Foundation Media for Social Impact Summit hosted at the UN headquarters, the Global Citizen Movement Maker Summit, Climate Works Artist Retreat, and exclusive reception for public figures to discuss the intersectionality of climate change and race. So she's been very busy, and we're happy to have all 3 of you can join us. Rosana is going to kick us off with her presentation. Thank you.
Talk about our Stopping Passport Starts initiative. So for those of you that don't know the Harbor Estuary Program, this is essentially our territory. We take a watershed approach to all the water bodies coming into the Harbor Estuary, which is the lighter blue at the bottom there, which is distinguished by the saline waters. So the Harbor Estuary Program is one of 28 national estuary programs in the country. We were created by the EPA in 1988 at the request of the governors of New York and New Jersey, really trying to develop and implement a consensus-driven plan to protect, conserve, and restore the estuary. So very large territory, as you can see. It's also one of the most densely developed metropolitan areas in the nation. So a lot of the work that I do as the water quality manager is within our water quality goal. We run on 5 goals, and there is, I left out some action agendas. This is our consensus-driven plan of what we're doing in the Harbor Estuary. But we have 5 goals, 17 objectives, and about 40 actions. So The Stopping Trash Where It Starts initiative came out of our water quality objective B, number 5 action for trash reduction. That's what I'm going to talk to you today. So this project started in 2016 within the Passaic River watershed, which is those blue dots there that you're seeing. There are tributaries, the second and the third river as well. We looked at 35 sites along the Passaic River watershed. Those sites were within the right-of-way, so sidewalk from building edge or property edge to the end of to the curb, and then 1 foot into the street. And this was done across all of these sites as well. We're looking at a 400-meter segment, and I'll go into that in a second, but I wanted to kind of give you a big overview of what's going on. Right now, we're working on the Bronx River and Harlem River watershed. That project should be completed this summer. I was just told that they were ramping up their surveys simply because May has been a very rainy month. So canceled a lot of the rain dates as well. And then we're also beginning the Hackensack River watershed. So really trying to get an understanding of that connection between the right-of-way, where people are located at, and then how the litter gets into the water body, and hopefully connect back to some of the beach cleanups like Surfrider has been done, which Matt will talk about. So I'll talk about the Passaic River watershed project in terms of data, but most of all the protocols that were put in place are being put in place in all of these watershed projects. So there are 5 objectives to stopping trash where it starts, really looking at the quantifying and qualifying trash inputs. So the Harbor Estuary program, along with the Montclair State University's Passaic River Institute, has worked together in developing a citizen science protocol, and we have a quality assurance project plan known as a QUAP or QUAP, depending on who to talk to. So that is available. It basically details to EPA exactly how we're collecting the data, how we're training folks, what forms are being utilized in the field, how do you assess and do things in the field and make decisions in the field, as well as doing a quality control after the data is being submitted, doing quality control and check that so you have high quality data at the end of that project. So for EPA, this is super important. As our Estuary program that is funded through the EPA, we really need to always have that quality. But it's very important to keep that level high. So the goals of the project is really to identify the dominant trash sources, looking at improving clean streets, street cleaning efforts, developing community toolkits, and looking at how we can reduce those trash inputs into the waterways. So the survey really runs at, we work with a bunch of community partners. The first project in the Passaic, we worked with the Friends of Portland Park, the Friends of the Bonsall Preserve, the Ironbound Community Corporation, New York, New Jersey Baykeeper, and the Hackensack River Keeper were first partners. They also got additional volunteers to participate in this study. The ones in the Bronx and Hackensack, I'll let you guys know who those partners are at the end because you guys can get involved. Basically, the survey looks at surveying within 400 meters of the right-of-way on one side of the street. So it's the whole sidewalk from building edge or property edge to the curb, and then 1 foot into the street, or equivalent to the end of the catch basin within the road. And we look at sorting and tallying the trash with a limit of no less than 2.5 centimeters, which really is the size of a cigarette butt, and looking at type, weight, size, and volume. And we have those limitations of no surveying within 48 hours of street sweeping, trash collection, or major rain events. So the goal really is to understand what amount of litter is found within a normal day, where it's not being influenced by stormwater runoff, it's not being influenced by high winds, it's not being dictated by trash cans with no lids on them. We really want to understand how that site is looking. And we survey each site twice, and we do a site description to understand what does the site look like when the volunteers and citizen scientists get there. What does that site look like? And then you go go ahead and do the tallying so that we have a really good perspective on what's going on within the project. So before we go off and do, engage these volunteers and send them out to the field, we do, again, the prop really is super important to outline those protocols, and the training is provided to those organization groups. This we find is super important in order to make sure that all of the data at the end of the day when we collect it back really is comparable against one another. So it's really important to make sure everyone's doing the same thing and addressing the issues similar. So this is essentially our, what we found with the Passaic River project. We're hoping to capture more in the next year. But essentially what we're finding is we also looked at foot traffic and vehicle traffic to understand if there's correlations between one or the other that increases the amount of litter found in the right-of-way. We found very weak correlations between them, but foot traffic does have a stronger significance than the vehicle traffic. So that already gives you kind of some indication of what those inputs are. Out of the 28,000 items found, 66% of them were floatable items, which is what you're seeing, these stacked bars. So these are the 35 sites. Again, each site was surveyed twice. So this is a total you could see, and you're seeing cigarette butts in the blue, this plastics and rubber in green, and styrofoam in red. And what was interesting with the study was those blue, the large cigarette butts were typically found in business corridors. People just go on cigarette breaks, they have no place to dispose, and they're just tossing on the floor. So that was something really interesting to think about and learn from this project. But very similar results in terms when we're looking at the total items of trash found. Very similar results to what EPA says, and 1/3 or 2/3, of items are typically food and drink related. So I do want to just connect back to our State of the Estuary, which I brought a bunch of them here. This is just the brochure version. We have a full version online. But really looking at the beach cleanups and what they're saying. So we're already noticing on this trend that there is a decline in how much, the pounds per mile, how much litter is actually being cleaned up. There's less material to be cleaned, which is a positive thing. But we are interested in trying to understand the metric of volunteers so we can compare New York and New Jersey's litter surveys better and understanding what those actions could be, and are we doing enough to stop the problem. And then if you're interested in participating in this project, these are the folks you can contact. The Bronx River Alliance, the Bronx is Blooming, are currently working on surveys this month and next month, and then the Hackensack River Keeper is just starting their work. And then the silent pledge. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
Is the presentation available online, or
Yeah, they're available online.
Pardon me?
They're available online. We'll send out an email after this maybe next week.
And after all the presenters speak, we'll open up for questions. So that one, next one will be good. Just for a second. Thanks. That was a real
I was
second.
thinking I creepily looked just like my photo. It's not good. I need a new look or something. Is that live feed? Cool. Hey, I'm Matt. Does this add? This adds just a touch? Not really? All right, if you want to be super cool, go and get on Instagram and follow me. There's tons of puppy and cat shots. There's our standard boilerplate for what Surfrider is. And I forgot to say thanks so much for having us here. This is great. And thanks to the new school for the new school. Thank you. It was awesome. I haven't been to one of these meetings before. Just do a second as background on Surfrider because it's confusing. I work for Surfrider. We have tons of volunteers all around the country. Those little red dots are not people. Those are whole chapters of people. We have about 80 chapters. And for this group, we have 5. We have 3 in New York and 2 in New Jersey. So that's a really cool Surfrider situation. These are all volunteers, and then we have 2 staff, me being one of them in this area. People always say, what do you work on? And I'm supposed to give this cool, like, 10-second spiel. But for me, the simplest thing is we do everything ocean and beach except for fishing. So don't tell my boss that I said that. It's a cool spiel that's supposed to say all that stuff at once. We work on tons of stuff on the beach, and now it's working. Now I can hear myself. Okay. I'm just shut. All right. We do tons of beach cleanups because we have all those volunteer chapters. We end up doing a lot of beach cleanups. It's kind of our, if you're in a volunteer chapter, it's kind of like step 1 to a beach cleanup. So we do a ton. The data collection you're talking about is incredible. That's what I'm talking about. Ours is okay. It used to be terrible. It's getting much better. Yes, we would like to be included, but we probably just took our game up. That stuff you were talking about. And then what we want to do with that data, which we've been getting better at, is using that data then to add policy wins. So you say, hey, we collected 200 X, Y, and Z's on your beach, so let's change the rules. Speaking of policy, we do a lot of policy work. A lot of local stuff, as you can imagine, since we have all these people in these chapters. They live on the coast. They're like, hey, I want to do this in my town. So we do a lot of that stuff. We also work on the state level and a teeny tiny bit on the federal level. There's some more volunteer action. Yeah, there it is. We also have a couple of toolkits for people to use, and we want to really make these for our volunteers because they're just normal people who are like, how do I do this? So we make them for them, but they're on our website. You just Google toolkit for plastic bag and you'll find it. This one's really awesome. It just came out. The straw toolkit is not as good, but it's very helpful. It's also online. Just Google for Surfrider toolkit straws. And then I think what I was actually supposed to talk about is ocean-friendly restaurants, which is our hip new program. And I'm also supposed to not call it a certification program, but I feel like that's what everybody understands. So it's one of those programs like Marine Stewardship Council or one of these things where you say, Surfrider has said you are a good business, and that will give you a cool sticker. So it's that kind of thing. So restaurants have to do these things, pretty much. No plastic bags, no styrofoam. We'll still let you do plastic straws on request. We'll still let you do plastic utensils for takeout on request. We made these rules up like 3 years ago, so if we made them up today, maybe we wouldn't have said that, but that's where we are right now. So basically, a restaurant does all these cool things, plus a couple other little things they have to do, and they get a cool sticker, and the sticker's nice, but really what they like is that we give them all sorts of social media love. So the local chapter where the restaurant is puts them on Instagram and says these guys are great, go eat there, etc. So it's fun. All right. We also try to hook them up. We didn't make these, but we also try to hook them up with great information so they're not just in the wilderness trying to figure out how to do these things. We have all this stuff online for them and some little sheets they can get through stuff. And this is where the program is right now. Launched a year or 2 ago. We have 40 restaurants. That sounds like either nothing or a ton. This program has tons of room to grow. It's mostly just people hours to get the word out and tell restaurants about this program. There's obviously tons of coastal restaurants. And once again, we can bring that program back into our policy work to have a business step up to the microphone at a hearing and say, I'm a business. I already did this. It's not the end of the world. You know, the sun didn't explode. We got rid of these packaging. It's fine. We actually just did that in Nassau County. We had 2 businesses show up and say, hey, we're going to do styrofoam. And I'm going to show a video about ocean-friendly restaurants. And then we're done. Okay. So this is a little bit twee, but it's nice.
Because at Surfrider, our love for the ocean doesn't stop when we leave the beach. Ocean-friendly restaurants. Here's to reducing our impact. And sometimes, going a little above and beyond.
Oh, those dolphins are hungry. Okay, so I think that's all I had, so thanks so much. Sorry? Yeah, the video is online as a shorter version too. Anything cool that was happening on the
Hey guys. Sorry, I'm kind of quiet. I'm Emmy with Lonely Whale. I will give you kind of just a quick overview for those of you who don't know Lonely Whale. And then I can share with you what I wanted to talk about today, which is our newest campaign we just launched last week. So Lonely Whale started about 4 years ago by two New Yorkers, actor and Blue and Environment Goodwill Ambassador Adrian Grenier, as well as his producing partner Lucy Sumner. They really have always been ocean and environmental advocates, and came across the story of the Lonely Whale, which many of you in this room might actually know the story of the whale that sings at 52 hertz. Basically a song unknown to any other creature. So it reflected this very real kind of existence that we as humans are experiencing now, right? We're disconnected, we don't connect with one another in communities, we don't connect with our environment, and thus we have a whole host of issues, right? Symptoms of this community problem. So we were founded on the basis of empathy, building empathy for one another, for our environment, and to collaborate with one another. So one of our founding missions is radical collaboration, and our work is focused on single-use plastic reduction and non-essential plastic reduction. So our work is focused on three core pillars, one being education, vital education for our newest learners. We have this program called Ocean Heroes Bootcamp, which was mentioned earlier, which empowers kids ages 11 to 18 to not just understand the problems with plastic pollution, but also how to actually take steps to measurably reduce plastic within their communities. So training them as young activists, campaigners. How do you campaign? What does that mean to actually have impact? How do you articulate that impact, build a team, and encourage network building around the world? Secondly, is scalable solutions. So we work with massive multinational companies to actually build the first ever global network of supply chains to intercept plastic before it enters into the ocean and incorporate that into products that are intended to then back into the sea. So it was really spearheaded by Dell Corporation. We now work with IKEA, HP, General Motors, Trek Bicycles, Herman Miller, Fluentscale, and a handful of others. So again, it's really looking at core issue areas around the world, basically being able to create waste management in areas where there is none. And then finally, what we're most publicly known for is our impact campaigning. So we're behind the whole now global straw movement, tackling the single-use plastic straw, really waking people up to the issue of plastic pollution in a way that's understandable and then actionable. Because until maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, on a massive international scale, plastic pollution wasn't something that was in the global consciousness. Now it is. So that campaign was really launched again under a banner of radical collaboration. It was called the Strawless Ocean Initiative. We had 50 different NGO and creative partners on board, all sharing this one very kind of simple message, which was stop sucking on plastic straws. So funny, very tongue-in-cheek. It was built in the same way that a marketing communications team would kind of build a campaign for a new product. Instead of selling a new product, for us it was all about selling the idea of a healthy ocean and what it is that you can do as a consumer, as a corporate, or as another NGO to take on this issue and to start driving change at a local level as well as at a national and international level. So we've been working on a new campaign, which we just actually launched last week, taking all the learnings that we kind of found out in the straw campaign, and focusing now instead on single-use plastic water bottles, which are arguably a much more important item than a plastic straw, which accounts for about 0.02% of all plastic production. The single-use plastic water bottle is really central to the plastic industry, as well as much more directly connected to climate change. I don't think I need to tell anyone in this room about the connection between plastics and climate, but it really starts to get more at the heart of the issue. 26% of all PET production worldwide right now is actually going to the production of plastic water bottles. We use 500 billion plastic bottles every single year around the world. So it's a big problem. It's a huge consumer shift that we have to get around, as well as basically kind of like upending branding. Like I'm not sure how many people in this room have kids or even have maybe had their own at one point affinity towards a specific plastic water bottle brand, but I definitely know in my own circle of peers, some people are Evian drinkers, others are Fiji water drinkers. It means a lot to people, right? Because they're being sold this concept of eternal youth, of health, of, a certain type of brand, same kind of thing that you kind of subscribe to if you're, an Adidas fan versus like a Nike fan, right? So we built this campaign called Question How You Hydrate. And it's really intended to kind of get at the heart of this issue. So we did a bunch of research and polling the past year and a half or so to try to figure out who is that core audience, how do we start to shift people's behaviors most quickly, and how do we make sure that it sticks. What we discovered is that the millennial mom is the biggest user of plastic water bottles, as well as the quickest to shift as soon as you start to tell them the stories and the facts around plastic recycling rates and usage around the world. So they, for us, are kind of our target audience, but recognizing that a millennial mom is much more than a millennial mom. She's also an entrepreneur. She's also a traveler. She is a foodie. Maybe she's also a techie, right? So being able to build out a series of characters that kind of helps surround that millennial mother, and that millennial mother could also be a father, right? And build out an entire kind of bevy of people that can support and rally around and build what hopefully, fingers crossed, will be a global movement. So quickly, I'm sorry, I did not download the correct fonts. This is not matching our beautiful design direction, which was created by a really amazing agency that's based here in New York City. Facts that you guys all know. And then really too, getting again to this issue, right, for the millennial mom, the plastic water bottle only really started becoming a trend in the early 90s. It's a really, really new trend. I myself was born in 1991. I grew up with a plastic water bottle, but it's such a new thing, and it's something that if it is such a new thing, I think that we can start to kind of again, wake people up, bring it back to what it was that we were all doing before plastic water bottles existed. So again, this is like our manifesto, so to speak, which is, how do you hydrate life? This is our call to action for the individual, the corporate, or the other NGO that are collaborating with us. How do you hydrate like you know the facts? How you know what your choices are to choose and champion alternatives to single-use plastic water bottles. So as part of the campaign, kind of like everyone does, right? There's kind of a pretty solid formula to what a campaign looks like. You have a PSA. So for us, we decided we were going to launch a plastic service announcement. And something that I think was as we talked about before is diversity and inclusion, and really reaching out and across the aisles into all the different subcultures that we really need to galvanize and to empower in order to create a movement that's not just one that is talking to the choir and engaging the choir, but it's really how do we have multiple different choirs singing at the same time. So I'll show you this. It's a quick 2-minute plastic service announcement.
Welcome back to the show. Do you love the taste of eternity? Then you'll love these plastic water bottles. Plastic water bottles, it's the best thing. Since a glass of water, they'll always take up space. When you're dead, when your children are dead, they'll still be around. You thought it just came from your tap? Oh no, no, no. It comes in a bottle now. Thank you for joining us. We want to ask you this. How do you hydrate? Plastic free, baby. Plastic free.
Plastic water bottles only came into use in the 90s, and now we act like it's the only way we can drink water.
91% of plastic ever produced has not been recycled.
I hydrate like I know plastic water bottles are among the top 5 most common items found in beach cleanups around the world.
I hydrate like the planet is a beautiful place, and we want to keep it that way. I hydrate like I don't want to move to Mars.
I
ocean is expected to have more plastic than fish by 2050.
Hydrate like you're on top of the world.
Hydrate like the ocean.
The planet and future generations depend on it.
Because we do.
Please, stop using single-use plastic water bottles.
Yeah, so anyways, so that's a plastic service announcement. Has a whole host of different kind of influencers, again, really trying to reach out. Aquaman himself, including a rapper, there's the guy from Mean Girls, a comedian. So there's, again, like we're trying to really reach a very, very wide audience. And get this out to as many people as possible. I don't know if I have any more time. You don't need to stop.
Questions from the audience.
Totally no problem. That's all good.
Okay. That was actually fantastic, and we hope that Plastic Free Waters Partnership, all the people here, all the NGOs that are, and government agencies, we can use all of your content and help you spread this message out far and wide. I'm certainly committed to doing that today, so I'm sure all of you here as well. I'd love to open it up and ask questions of our panel. What questions do you folks have? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hi. So I have questions for you in the ad campaign. So you had mentioned that it's targeted to mostly female mothers. What about the baby boomers? Have you thought about that community and have you surveyed that? What the baby boomers?
Yeah, so for us, like again, like what we saw in our national polls, we did a nationally representative poll of who uses single-use plastic water bottles and who uses reusables, and there's a lot of people out there, which is also very interesting. But for us, it was again like the inroad and the most success that we could have on really flipping the narrative started with millennial moms, which is why we built content that was going to really resonate the most with them first. But we also recognized that, like, of course, as soon as you get one kind of core audience, you start to trickle out. So for us, that was the decision we made.
And how is it being disseminated then? It's like, what's your strategy for dissemination?
Yeah, so great question. So pretty heavy marketing communication strategy. We have a full go, just like a brand would, like a full go-to-market strategy. So pretty heavy communications plan. We actually had, this was kind of an accident, but a happy accident. We had a brand that we were working with on just generally understanding the global plastic footprint and trash footprint. And they realized that they could solve one of the core issue areas, which is even if you're going to make people up to the problem of single-use plastic water bottles, we still live in a single-use world, and unfortunately that's something that we have to also be we have to recognize, right? As a broader movement, as we're working towards getting people towards reusables, sometimes that first step for some kinds of moments, right? Sometimes you're in the airport, sometimes you're on the go, sometimes you are a mom who's going to soccer practice and the kids don't have their reusable water bottle. So what can you do? So they actually ended up joining us in our communications marketing launch plan and aligning the same product they built with the intention of helping fit that market need that they knew that we would be providing to them as a nonprofit and as a nonprofit. So combination of that influencer marketing strategy, every single person in that piece shared to their social channels, of course. So our reach was a little bit upwards of my brain's escaping right now, but it's probably like, I don't know, hundreds of millions of followers, in addition to them reaching out to additional celebrities too. So again, like targeting very specific individuals or subcultures. And then one thing I didn't share, which was we also opened a pop-up experience in Soho last week, closed last night, so we called it Museum of Plastic. So again, like as you start to kind of surprise consumers and say like, oh, generally you go into a pop-up experience and try to sell you something. This was us just saying, like, no, actually, no, you gotta understand, like, this is a really big problem. Come out of it and have a big commitment to stop using single-use plastic water bottles. So yeah, it was down on Soho for about 6 days.
That's fantastic. Is there any information on the Museum of Plastic on your website?
Yeah, so there's two websites, museumofplastic.org and then hydratelike.org.
Okay, that's great. We'll put that out in our call notes so that people get access to that. I saw a question up there?
Yeah. I know the straw campaign was super successful and like at some point it connected
to the city of Seattle. The city of Seattle banned straws, or tried or attempted to. Do you guys have like a political strategy to ban all water in any place, or is it just kind of marketing at this point?
No, so the way that we view ourselves is that we're like conversation communicators and we try to make space for policy to happen. So for us, the strategy for Seattle was we actually did a citywide campaign in Seattle, recognizing that they are a super green space and that the strategy is a place to be successful. So we had created so much noise in the city that the city actually called us and asked us to announce to lift their exemption on the ban at the press conference for our campaign. So we actually then provided them a moment for them to say like, hey, we're the good guys for once, right? Like we're going to ban something, but it's because everyone wants it. So that's the same kind of thing here that we're trying to just create content and conversation to empower all the collaborators that are working on a local level to then actually ensure that policy is passed and it's celebrated and it stays.
Nice, creating the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. Thanks. Yes.
Yeah, to touch on cleanups, the Surfrider doors. With the plastics, do you break down bottles versus bags versus, do you get that right?
Yes, we go very, very much in depth. I mean, our tally form is, I think, like 8 pages. We go from like category to subcategory and then by material.
We do two options. We do if you just want to do a basic weight, time, location, amount of people, or you can get down into it and do, I don't know if it's as deep as you guys, but it's the same thing where they actually will separate out. So we give our volunteers the option.
What's happening with all the data that you're collecting? Like, can you access it easily?
Yeah, so my goal is to, the Passaic River project is already completed, and that data and the results of that data is online on our website. The link is on my PowerPoint. But my goal is, so we'll have the results of the Bronx and Harlem River watershed later this summer, and then the Hackensack probably early July, February is the goal. And then what I'd like to do is start looking at it holistically of all of these watersheds that come into the harbor. Well, what is the dominant source? Is it still this food and drink related plastics? And then can I connect it back to your beach cleanups, to the American Littoral Society cleanups, the ocean, like looking at where those beach surveys are being done and like connecting it back to the shoreline, connecting it there to see where's that connection, is it the same sources? And then, our hope is that the survey and the data that's being collected, because it's in the right of way, it's not directly in the waterway, we're hoping that that can be used to enforce policy and ordinances within communities. Because what we're finding is, folks that aren't on the waterfront or community groups that have a waterfront but don't access it, right? How do you activate them into understanding the problem and changing their behavior? So really trying to get to the crux of that is like, okay, let's look at your community in the right way and how that ends up going into the waterway, that it does become marine debris. So having those conversations are important.
I actually have a question. So a lot of us are already working on local ordinances and state legislation, and data tracking, like you're referring to, is really critical. But it's challenging to put it into policy right now. Do you have any recommendations on how ordinances and legislation should be written so that it helps the data and the back end?
You mean into the bill?
Into the bill, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
It'd be great to do, right? I mean, if you think of New Jersey with the Clean Communities Group, right? So getting funding from the state and then disseminating to municipalities, how do we utilize that existing funding that's being used for the cleanups? Like how can we get that to drive data? Right. That would be like one. I think that would be probably the first step to kind of understand that.
Okay.
Didn't DC do a pretty good job of that with their original bag fee, where the money went back into the city and they were taking before and after?
Yeah, DC was doing that, and Suffolk County did that as well. But that was part of the legislation for that big difference. Go ahead, John.
So yeah, when it comes to litter inclusion, we would all love people to stop, right? And we can pass laws and we can change what's available to folks, but here in Europe, we have people from all over the world many, many different languages. Has there been, I always think about this with the basins, right? Has there been, I feel like there needs to be more research or just a change in the basin that can filter out more stuff, right? We can stop stuff from getting into the sewage, into our sewers, because yes, we can ban straws, but I walk by my park in my neighborhood every, I'll be walking my dogs to the dog park, and there's always litter or water balloons or
Talking about better infrastructure is what
like the basin, the catch basins, like I know that they have to stop. You don't want flooding to happen, but has there been anybody kind of?
Yes. New York City, there are a couple of different scenarios, and we're hoping that this data can also be used for our CSO communities as well as the MS4 communities, separate storm sewer systems, as well as the combined sewer system communities. So New York City actually has redesigned their catch basins to incorporate a tank that actually captures the floatables. So all the litter would end up going in there. I think like bottle caps and stuff still get through it, so that will continue on. In New Jersey, they have nets at the end of the combined sewer systems to capture the floatables, or they'll have a boom system in place to capture it. I think New York City has some on the Bronx River, the Bronx River Alliance has a couple of booms as well. So there's strategies already in place that try to collect it before it gets out into the harbor. So that there is positive movement there. But I think there's also a need to understand more what that relationship with litter on the right of way, and what types of materials are we seeing? Is it becoming more fragments? Right, there's certain areas that I've seen from the data collecting that there's areas that had high fragments, right? So those are small pieces, and those are going to get through anything that you put in, whether it's a net or that tank in the infrastructure itself.
I would also just point out, the further down the chain you go, the more expensive the solution.
Right.
So, our laziness is actually causing more cost to us as a taxpayer ultimately. So it has to be at both ends completely. And waterworks, treatment works are very old. Generally, they're not the infrastructure's kind of needing some investment anyway.
Needs some TLC.
So these are important facts, but it's much more expensive.
There's definitely other solutions, right? So what we're seeing, from the data collecting, it's where those fragments are. So business corridors know that. Okay, so what solutions can you put? Can you put a vase with filled with sand and be that as a point, right? So trying to capture that litter before it actually gets onto the floor and into the catch basin. That's the goal, right? So at the end of the day, when you think about it, when Surfrider is out doing these shoreline beach cleanups, that's already a problem. It's not the solution. It's just a band-aid to the problem.
I see we have time for one or two more questions. So, Ivy?
Hi. So I have a question that pertains to Sarah's comments, and that is going up the ladder. It seems to me that all of this plastic trash is coming from kind of how we get our food. We either get it at a grocery store or we get it at a restaurant. There are many little franchises now whose business model does not include any dishwashing. So it doesn't matter if you eat in or take out, it's going to get thrown away. Has there been any work aside from the restaurant-friendly certification that Surfrider does as to rewarding or encouraging the disruption of how we do our grocery shopping, or the celebrating of a business establishment that decides, okay, we're going to put in dishwashers, or we're not going to have this steady stream of plastic waste coming out as we give food to our customers? Good question.
Is there any other program?
Have you tried that? Has it worked? Has it not worked? Are you thinking about doing that? Because it seems like it all comes from, look down any aisle in any grocery store.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we are definitely in the delivery model business, from Uber Eats to DoorDash to everything else in between.
So part of the study, which I didn't mention, because we're trying to further understand this, is with within those like sites that we have selected in 400 meters, we're also doing an 800 by 800 meter quadrant around those sites to identify what those potential sources could be. So restaurants, grocery stores, bodegas, food trucks that come in and out of the neighborhood, ice cream trucks. So trying to see, like, because part of the project also is trying to identify brands that we can come back to. So trying to understand like what that linkage is, and is there a strong correlation? Is it likely that you're walking out of McDonald's and like throwing out your stuff right there, or are you walking down a couple of blocks and then throwing it out and it falling on the floor? So we're trying to understand that a little bit, but we're just, in the beginnings of that stage of understanding that.
I see that happy hour is getting cracked, so I'm going to take one more question.
Thank you. So I was wondering if the data you're collecting after you do a cleanup, are you drilling down to the brand? And so what percentage of a certain cleanup belongs to, let's pretend it's a Coca-Cola bottle? Are you using that data to target those brands and hold them accountable for their product?
Right now, we're not focusing on brands, but we're just trying to get our data thing happening. That would be, for us, that would be kind of a new direction.
There is social media stuff.
So people are doing that.
There are two that are doing that. So one is there's a big piece right from it. So it's part of the larger movement. It's plastic and overall coming from. So that's a great one to check out if you are curious about that.
Yeah, we're collecting brands, but we're not essentially going after them. We're just trying to understand where they're being purchased and where they're located, like where their sources are, and how you can then inform those groups, those sellers essentially, how do you inform them about the products and what happens to their product.
And if I can just plug the Gove marine debris, they're also a data traction and collecting as well as variety, and all that goes to national and international databases. So as much as you guys can and encourage everybody to use smart apps and machine learning and get that data in the systems.
I'm just going to comment.
Sure.
Groups like BSR and series work with the corporate side of things to look at their packaging, maybe get aware or not. But so they're working kind of from the other end. It might be interesting. I don't know that they're always with kind of this side on the local connect staff, but they're really working to push it down with the businesses.
What is the name of that part?
One of them is series. It's CRES. They're out of Boston, but they work nationally. And then the other one is BSR, Business for Social Responsibility, and it's more like an association. So, and then there's also I don't remember it. It's ECO is something that's actually here in the city, and they also work nationally with Fortune 500 companies.
Great, thank you. Debbie Lee?
I just want to say we did a similar project on a much smaller scale with kids from 3rd grade to 6th grade in 3 communities, also funded by EPA and NUPIC in 2016. And we did 3 litter surveys, and we did it concentrated on the same block, same time, with these 3 different neighborhoods that were mostly near public housing and low-income neighborhoods. And we did it hyper-locally. And in between the 2nd and 3rd surveys, we led outreach campaigns. Our students led these outreach campaigns. And in every single neighborhood, on single-use plastics. In all 3 neighborhoods, we reduced the amount of single-use plastics by 40%. There were kids. We photographed everything so that we could make sure that actually the data was correct. But what was amazing was digging out the very hyper-local level because they were the kids from that neighborhood. They knew, oh, this green plastic bag goes from that's from that bodega, or this routing. And so kids had a kind of, it was almost like an anthropological insider's view, and it got them very involved. And just the act, even before they did the outreach, just the act of neighbors, like seeing them cleaning up, even people who were collecting data, was enough for the bodegas as well as the neighbors to become interested and say, wow, how amazing, the kids are cleaning up. That's really incredible. So data that they collect. And our kids actually presented that data at City Council. So it's very interesting to think of, like, yes, we can go to stuff, but also at a very grassroots level. That's all in the movie, and we'll share that in our curriculum. But how much you can do on such a local, hyper-local level.
That's a great ending spot, because that's as local as that gets, just picking up the litter in front of the stores.
Yeah.
Please, thank our panel here for this.
I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for taking some time out of their day. It's been a really great meeting. I really encourage the working groups to continue this discussion over the next coming weeks. We're going to have a whole new partnership meeting in October, probably the first week of October. We're going to confirm the date in our next e-blast. And John at the back there and Sydney will be sending a reminder of what we've been speaking about today, and also just keeping the communication going between the group. Any ideas for the website, anything you want uploaded to the website, email plasticfreewaters@gmail.com. As I said, we're going to go live with those ordnance maps shortly, but any updates to any of the pages, let us know. We want to make it as interactive, we want to make it as, as useful as a toolkit as possible. So thank you for all coming.